Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother, Asar Hotep with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And today I want to, as quickly as possible, uh, provide a citation for some nuance in the discussion of the spread of the Abrahamic religions in Africa. Because if you listen to a lot of the apologetic researchers and scholars, when they talk about, for example, the introduction of Christianity into Africa, they make it seem as if that the collective of the society, like almost simultaneously, decided to abandon their religions and ancestor uh, perspectives and culture to adopt Christianity. But just to do this willingly without any kind of dialogue, without any type of research from the indigenous people, and the like. So I want to give a perspective here from this text, the historical study of African religion, edited by Ranger and Kimambo. This was published in 1972 and reprinted in 1976. So I want to go to this particular chapter, written by Bethwell A. Ogot, right here. And it is titled On the Making of a Sanctuary, Being Some Thoughts of the History of Religion in Podola. And so, of course, we won't be able to read everything, so I just want to highlight a few things from a few pages. So I'm going to skip around. So the first is coming from the very beginning of the article on page 122. So in discussing how he's framing the article, he starts by saying, without discussing the broader question raised by Toynbee as to whether the Podola were originally nature worshippers before they turned to God for succor, I wish to argue in this paper that for the last 500 years or so, when the Podola have existed as an historical entity, they have worshipped only one God. The monotheism introduced by the later-day higher religions, such as Christianity and Islam, in the area therefore represented neither a revival nor an innovation, but an attempted merger of the differently derived concepts of God. I hope to show further that Podola religion has been influenced significant ways by four major events, and we'll skip that for now. So keep that in context, that they already had a concept of one God, and there's some other things we'll get to in the third citation. But they didn't see it off the bat as something foreign. So when the missionaries and stuff were coming into Africa, they understood the African religions and tried to find commonality and then build their case off this commonality to make it seem like they weren't changing much of anything. So now we're going to go to page 131 of the text. And so this is going to be a little bit more lengthy, but I hope you keep this in context. So I'm starting on the second paragraph, and I'll go to the fourth. The first point concerns the manner in which Christianity, which is really the dominant foreign religion in Podola, was introduced. Kakungulu and his soldiers from Uganda not only established their military superiority by defeating Podola soldiers, they also attempted to show the superiority of their religion by first arresting Majanga, the chief priest of Bura, and then erecting the new Christian shrines throughout the territory. Hence, to the Podola, Christianity was a conquest religion, which symbolized their inferior position. So I'm going to pause here, then I'm going to continue. So the Kakungulu was part of the Ugandan regime who came down and conquered the Podola people. but they themselves were conquered by the English. And so it was the English that conquered them and brought the Christianity, and then they in turn went and conquered another African group and forced Christianity on them. And I bring this up because this will be common throughout Africa in various different parts. So sometimes the conquering of the religion, whether it be Christianity or Islam, may have first been introduced by either the Arabs or the Europeans, but then the Africans themselves begin to do the proselytization and conquering and bringing the religion with them, just like in this particular case. So I'm going to continue on. Most of Kakangulu's agents were avid readers and determined teachers. They were eager to teach the people over whom they ruled, and this greatly facilitated the work of the church. However, the tendency was for each area to follow the religious domination of its agents. And since most of the agents were Baganda from Uganda, the medium of instruction became Luganda, Lu being the prefix for language. It was regarded as almost ungodly for the Padola to worship in their own language at the new and foreign sanctuaries. Initially, Christian converts recruited by the Baganda missionaries, and the quotes is in citation, were sent to Mbali in Bugisu, if Protestant, and to Badaka in Bugwere, if Catholic, for baptism and simple instruction in Luganda. The pilgrimage for religious education hampered the work of the missionaries, for the Padola converts were often away from their societies for long periods. Some were even sent to faraway missionary centers in Buganda. Moreover, each trainee had to be provided with food by his relatives during the journey, and while at the mission center, the result was that only children of relatives of chiefs and well-to-do parents could afford to become Christians. This is going to be very important for this last citation. So, going to page 133. To the new faith, to the Padola people, were merely restating what they had believed in all along. The belief in one God, a holy trinity, which is Were and Were Otim and Were Mariodipo, Were being a word for deity, the divine God itself, and the goodness of God were all contained in Padola religion. So there was already some commonalities, and this is what they played on. Even the concept of communion of saints sounded very much like the Padola idea of the community of good spirits. It gives a citation, but I'm going to skip that and go to the next paragraph. And hence, the African converts tended to look upon Christianity as just another version of the vision of reality, which he defines earlier in the text. It was probably superior because it was professed by white men and because it was based on a book. So they understood Christianity as the white man's religion. We'll continue on that topic a little later. It was certainly a ladder to social, political, and economic advancement. For instance, only Christians and a few Muslims could become chiefs, and the clerks and interpreters were recruited from among those who had been to mission schools and were therefore regarded as Christians. Hence, many Padola became Christians because it paid to be one. And so what you learn from this is that it was a very crafty strategy that was being imposed in various different ways and in various different layers. But what's more important is that when the European came into this region, they controlled the economics and they controlled the politics. And they made it to that if you wanted to be able to live and survive, you had to adhere to the culture and the philosophy and the religion of the dominant group, whether they were the original European group that dominated in Buganda, or now today called Uganda, or whether it was the Baganda people who were imposing on the Padola people, right? And because of this, more and more people were being converted because it paid to do so. So we can't have upward mobility unless we do this. And so saying all that to say is that these people who were the normal folks outside of original kings and chiefs who converted didn't convert because the text was meaningful and that they saw something in it that surpass what they already had. Because as you know, a lot of these concepts already existed within the culture. So there's no need for conversion. But because the economics and the politics were controlled by this Eurocentric framework, now if I'm going to move up and have access to things, I need to become Christian. This is how most of the people outside of just direct forceful conquering became Christians throughout Africa and Muslims. It's just to have access to wealth, access to trade, access to certain educations, because missionaries can't go into places and just do good for good's sake. They always have to proselytize the religion, and this is their crafty and sneaky way to do it, to make it come in. They come in and make it seem like they are saviors to problems that they ultimately created in the first place. So, again, that source is the historical study of African religion, and just wanted to put that on your mind. Until next time, Hotep.